Okay, so today's the first day coming back for term 3 for mindfulness. It's going to be a half an hour course every Friday, and I will give you a few questions every Friday. Yes, if you can do them that week, the better. So the first question would be, there may be one that is repeated, just only one. What is the most amazing thing about yourself? So what is the most amazing thing about yourself? The next question is number 2. How do you know what is real and what is not? So the second one again, how do you know what is real and what is not? Number 3, do numbers really exist or we created them? So do numbers really exist or man has created them? Number 4, can the ego create your spiritual foundation? So can the ego, we're calling it the ego at this point, or your identity. So can the ego create your spiritual foundation? Or in other words, you could put down if you want to, can the ego make you a spiritual person? And number 5, which is easier, to love or be loved? Number 6, can you see your opinion or you are the opinion? So can you see your opinion or you can't, you just become it? So even if you don't understand, sometimes you question, just write anything, it's fine, because I will answer back. Okay, there's more. Number 7. We're going to look at thinking. So number 7 is, can thought be aware of itself as it is taking place? So can thought be aware of itself as it is happening? So we know that you could have a thought and then later on you are aware of the thought, but the question is here is different. Can thought be aware of itself? So that must have been number 7. We go to the next one. It's a lot of homework for you, yes? Okay, next one is, this one you don't have to answer. It's just a way, you don't have to actually reply to me, but maybe write it yourself. If you knew you were going to die tomorrow, what would you do today? Or you could see it differently. If you knew you were going to die in a day or two, what would you do now differently today and tomorrow? Okay, number 9. Number 9 is a quote. So I want you to just meditate on it and then just write anything about it to me. Number 9 is, if you live with awareness, then there is no death. If you live with awareness, then there is no death. And number 10, the last one. I'll put it down as a question so you can meditate on this question. Is enjoying change maybe a good resilience? Because we talked about resilience last term. So is enjoying change maybe good resilience? Maybe it's good practice of resilience is to enjoying change. You're accepting change, you're going with it. So just, you can contemplate on that one as well. If you missed on a question, or one of them wasn't clear, just you can unmute, just let me know. But if everything was fine, you can thumbs up there and we'll carry on. Okay, good.
Sorry, Bruno.
Yes.
Before you begin,
Go ahead.
The quote. If you live with awareness, then there's no death. Whose quote is that? Is that a quote from someone?
From someone. Let's say it's from someone.
From someone. Okay. That's all. That's good.
Yes.
Okay. You can. I'll turn myself off now.
No, that's okay. It's good. Yeah, your questions are important. So always any comments. I don't want this to be just my voice. So it's nice for you to interact, yeah, and come up with some ideas and thoughts. Okay, so the next thing is, when you think about, we're all trying to figure out this world, how what are we doing here? And looking at the energies and looking at the forces. You could say that when you're born into this life, you get access to 2 different forces. You may want to call them powers if you want to. It's like a power. You get access to these 2 different forces. One of them is the external one, which has to do with what's happening around you and what you see around you. Which of course we call it like society, living with people, living in the world. But the other force that we have is the one that is very, very real, which is the one that it was you before you were born. Yeah. So you could say, okay, you know what you've been doing for the last, depends on your age, for the last 30 years, 50 years, 60, 70 years. But what did you do before that? What did you do 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago? So definitely you may just believe that, okay, you just popped here into this world and that's it. And then there's nothing else and you're coming from nowhere. Or maybe you already had a bit of insight that you always existed. So that is the unseen force, the unseen dimension. So you have these 2 forces, you get access to these 2 forces. The question is, which one are you going to use more? Is it the one that you can see? Or are you not interested in the one you cannot see? And we don't want to put other names like, spiritual or beyond or different dimensions. It's just 2 different forces you want to maybe talk about it or power. So this one here is the power of creating and trying to be somebody. We talk about prestige, being special, trying to stand out from somebody else. So this is your opportunity to stand out from others because you have an ego, you are separate, so you can stand out. But then when we all die, nobody stands out in that sense. So the question is, how much time are you putting into this force that is external, and how much you're putting into the internal journey or the internal force? And really, it's up to you. We're not going to talk about and give opinions on which one is better because it's silly. You could say that really nothing exists. It's only the present moment. Life is very simple. Just the present moment and nothing else. There's no Tai Chi, there's no Tao, there's no past, there's no future. It's just the present moment. So, but the moment that we have a thought and we start to think is okay, it's beautiful as well, but we are, what some people say, we're complicating things now. We're starting to think and formulate answers and label things. And as we talked about before in term 2, as soon as you start labeling things, maybe the ego gets happy, but you haven't solved the problem. Just labeling a cat, if you see a cat and you label it a cat, it doesn't mean you know what it is now. You don't really know what a cat is. It's more than just a label or 3 letters, or just making a sound. 3 letters and you just say cat and you think you know what you're talking about. So when you look around, there's a life, and you can't put it in words. And that is Lao Tzu tried to explain that in his book, which is like 5,000 years old, we believe. It's an ancient book, Tao Te Ching. Yeah. So and when he wrote his book, we believe he said maybe that he doesn't want to write about the truth because you can't write it, but okay, you insist. Here you go. And he just wrote the Tao Te Ching quickly and then took off to the mountains because the stories of the emperor didn't really want him to go. They wanted him to contribute to society and give some more knowledge, talk a bit more. So really, we're just talking. So it's okay. It's nice to get together like this and we chat and have some ideas. And that's what we're doing is, we can call it, be philosophizing. But also you have to be comfortable with not talking. And just deepen. You want to deepen into a stillness. Yeah. Or try to go between, don't take, as we say, don't take too much notice on what I'm saying, really, because your brain is working it out. But you're trying to pay attention to what I'm not saying, or the space. So that's what we're trying to do, just deepen a bit more. And some of those questions can maybe, almost like those koans in Zen, they can almost start this meditative state, and you don't actually answer the question. Because you suddenly landed in the present moment and pure awareness. So then you're not going to answer the question. There's no point. So the mind, unfortunately, we got used to this force of the mind, the power of it, and the amazing things we can achieve. And the mind is going to say to you all the time, well, the mind is helping me to do things and to organize things, to get things done. I have to run a school, I have to run a business, so the mind is helping me. So yes, of course. But the question is it truly important to think right now? Do you have to be thinking all the time? So we sometimes don't know how to stop. So sure, I use the mind a lot. I have to make sure I don't forget the Friday 7 p.m. class. So I put it in my diary. But So we use I have to look at my diary, and I almost forgot that we had the class on. So, but it's not a bad thing to empty your mind. Yeah. So there is a fear of stop thinking. Or I think I mentioned in the classes this week, in person when we saw each other, I said when I had that experience and I had amnesia and I forgot everything. Well, it wasn't that bad. What's so bad of having amnesia? So you never really think about it. It could be another question. So of course, for the ego, it's terrible. And if it happens to your family or someone that you feel is terrible and they're suffering, but are they really suffering? You're not going to lose yourself, actually, if you just, if your brain didn't function properly. It's still you. So if you don't want to get too caught up in thinking and worrying and stressing about things and the fear of, losing things and getting the stress, it's just a habit now that you've created. So meditation somehow, or mindfulness during the day is very helpful, and just include it as much as you can. Any questions at the moment? I want to give little gaps for you to see if there was something that maybe you wrote down to ask me. You can ask now.
Excuse me, Bruno, will you be sending us a list of those 10 questions that you just read out? Because I missed the first 4.
Yes, no problem. I will send them out. All right, so you can also think about things like music. A lot of things in society, everything in society is basically for you to be able to trying to live happily in society. They're not really aimed for your spiritual journey. There are some things, of course, but when you look at society, it's about really what you can see. Yes, so we're looking at those kind of things. If you think about music is quite interesting because it can take you out of thoughts, but also music music is very powerful. So what music does is it takes you somewhere. So the question is, where is it taking you? So if you listen to music, and it can be the Bee Gees or ABBA or something, or whatever you like or used to hear a lot, it might take you suddenly to a certain time in your life where suddenly everything just feels so good. So what it did, it took you out of the present moment, of maybe the life that you don't like very much. And maybe it's taking you to something that you really, really feel like, oh, that was really me. I was really having fun and I wasn't thinking too much then when I was whatever age. So music can take you to places. It can help you to kind of trigger and bring some awareness. But you need to observe music and use it in a positive way as well. Maybe music, do you know any music that can take you to the present moment instead of taking you somewhere out into the past or something? So a lot of the music we play in the Tai Chi classes is to try to make an experience for you. As we talked about the theta brainwaves and something that will trigger a different brainwave activity, so you can be more present of what's going on and yourself, and see the beauty of the present moment, the beauty of the movement, how beautiful the movements are. Your hands, your breathing, how amazing it is. So you can use music in a good way rather than just playing old music. It just reminds you of a certain time when you start to think about the past or whatever, and while you're driving, paying attention to to your driving. So you things always, you want to try to bring awareness as much as possible to the present moment. So I think we talked in the classes As soon as you start to do something, you could say the mind is doing something. Make sure the awareness is really close, it follows. So awareness is just like if you have this child next to you and you're taking this child around you wherever you go. So some of you, I mentioned that only last week, maybe it's this idea, if you have a child, 5 years old, and this child, you have to take this child with you everywhere because you can't leave the child home. So are you going to tell the child you're a pain? I just can't deal with you now, or shut up, and I need to do things, I need to rush. And you will not do that with your child. You will try to teach your child what you're doing and do things slow and let the child catch up with the things you're doing. Like my son, when he was 5 and he would watch me doing the dishes, and, oh, can I watch or can I do some? And yeah, of course. So you want to include the child in everything you're doing at home, just imagine. So you want to do that with your awareness. Don't take off with your mind. Just make sure awareness is there. So when you're eating, it's a very slow process. When you're writing, all those little things we talked about. If you had your son or daughter next to you and you're rushing things, and they will pick up that habit, right? We try not to do these things, and they pick up bad habits and complain as well. You complain, so they will start to complain. You breaking things and throwing things around, they will do the same. So we're trying to avoid that and just be aware of your actions during the day. And then just be aware. Is awareness next to you? Oops, no? Okay, then slow down. You're walking too fast. So I got this sign of we're running out of time in 5 minutes. So we'll stop in probably 5-10 minutes. So we could maybe finish with this idea of that you need to love a state, or this state of not knowing or not doing, and see what happens. Just to slow down for a while, not all the time, it's fine. But not knowing is fine. Because it's true, we don't know what's going to happen in the next, half an hour or 2 hours. But the mind is always trying to prepare you and control things. It's quite amazing. It's doing that all the time. Yes, trying to make sure that there are no surprises, and you're planning, you're preparing, which means that already you are having some expectations, and you're creating already a bit of stress just by creating some expectations or high expectations. So just being comfortable with just being quiet. But the mind is saying big things about this moment all the time. The mind has a lot to say about what's going on and what you're looking. It doesn't stop. So the best way is not, you can't stop it. If the mind has a lot to say, then just watch it. That's one of your questions. Can you see your opinion? Or maybe you realize you can't see your opinion because your opinion just is your opinion. You become your opinion. You maybe see it later on that you got angry and whatever. And what about your thoughts? Can a thought be aware of itself as it's happening? So you're having a thought, but is the thought aware of itself? Or the awareness comes after? So all you need is through the day, just a few moments where you can stop, and you could do your Tai Chi, breathing, exercise, whatever, and look at some of these questions and just make a note and have a book and write these things down. Okay, so we will stop there. And I'll leave it open for questions until we run out, which is about 5 minutes. And then after that, I will send you a link. So for those of you that want to carry on, we're going to do the Shibashi set number 1, and then just show you a few moves of the set number 2. And every session, I will talk a little bit about why that set was created and about the doctor that created it. Just some new information for you to get excited about Shibashi, which is really nice. All right, so you're free to ask any questions if there are any. It's fine. You're all nice and relaxed and in the present moment.
If you're asking if a thought can be aware of itself as it's happening, isn't that making a thought into a thing or an entity, like some kind of separation within yourself?
Interesting. I'm not going to say anything.
Okay, thank you.
It's whatever you think. Yes.
Yeah.
Bruno,
Yes.
it seems to me that we've talked about this in class before about awareness, being aware, but I think I've always thought that at least some of the appeal of the ability to meditate is to stop being aware of exactly what I'm doing or what's around me, or to make it sort of disappear and go inside. And so it seems like a certain contradiction to say, is awareness always with you? Are you always aware of what you're doing?
Yeah, it's very hard to explain, of course. The same with archery. If I'm going to be aware, which depends, if I'm going to be thinking about what I'm doing, if I'm going to be aware of, if I'm going to be thinking about what I'm doing, then I'm going to make a mess. So if I use it in that sense, there's a thinking process. But if I stop thinking, then you could say awareness is there. And awareness will take over. But the thing is that when awareness takes over, it's not you anymore. But then that sounds weird, because then who are you then if it's not you? Somebody else? Or it's not that. So that's all I can say maybe at the moment. A lot of the things will sound a contradiction, there's no doubt about it. Because they are two different worlds. And we need to harmonize those two worlds. Any other question? I'm not promising answers that I'm going to answer your questions. 2 minutes, so you got time. Yes, good. You're kind of looking at yourself, yeah? So now you're aware of what you're doing, the way you're sitting or the way you're moving. So that's what I mean, watching. So you have to start somehow to create a reference point to say, where are you? I'll make a note of this, and well, I'll start maybe next week with where are you?
I think the goal would be to be aware without judgment, but it's very hard to be conscious of yourself, which is what I think of awareness, or conscious of what you're doing. without a judgment, making some kind of judgment. So yeah, it does seem quite difficult to me.
Yeah, what I'm saying is actually very simple, and anybody can do it because you're human. So it's part of, you can do it. It's just a matter of you trying to understand what I'm saying, because your words are not exactly the truth. It only points to something that looks like what I'm saying. So all I can do is point, but you will have to figure it out, where your center is, or what do I mean by that. But just keep on working on it, because yeah, it's the idea of the ox we talked about last term. Yes, I don't know if you were there, but it's the search of the ox. You suddenly found it. You can work on it, but and then afterwards there's no more questions anymore. You won't have any more questions.
So Bruno, back to the awareness. So if I think of awareness as me sitting in a movie theater, watching a movie screen of what is happening in front, and then I could be behind the projector watching me sitting in the movie theater, watching the screen. Is that making sense?
Yes, first of all, quickly, just let you know, we only got like 20 seconds. So we'll carry on the question next week as well. But yes,
Okay.
is you going behind you to watch yourself, if you can. So it's something like that. That can be helpful for some. Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. I will let you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruno.
Might see you later.